Welcome back to SME Insights. My name is Rob Luce. I am the Vice President of the SME Education Foundation. And joining me today is Dottie Stewart, who is the Vice President of Sales America at Ultimaker. Dottie and I are going to be talking about the recent partnership between Ultimaker and the SME Education Foundation and providing insights into how that partnership is helping to drive the next generation of manufacturing and engineering talent. Dottie, welcome to SME Insights.
Absolutely, so happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Perhaps you could start by telling us a little bit about Ultimaker's education practice, education group.
Absolutely. So Ultimaker, I think one of the things that makes us really different is that really Ultimaker is a conglomeration, because Ultimaker is a combination of MakerBot and Ultimaker, two of the leading desktop brands that are in the market. We came together and merged about 2.5 years ago. And we have kind of merged, I think, the best of both worlds, because MakerBot was always very focused on that K-12 experience. Ultimaker was focused more on the middle school, high school, kind of up into the professional world of 3D printing. So I think what we do best is we are positioned to take children from kindergarten, yes, kindergarten, all the way up to their professional career through the 3D printing process, so that we start kids learning about design thinking, about how to integrate empathetic problem solving into their daily lives from a very early age, so that by the time they get to high school, they're starting to really play with advanced geometries, advanced polymers. And so when they go out to work for a company, they are ready to go out there and solve some pretty unique problems for that company.
Yeah, you don't want to plant the seed as a freshman. You want to plant that seed when they're 5, so that tree is growing by the time they get to high school.
Exactly.
The earlier the better.
Exactly, couldn't agree.
So why is it important, in your opinion, for companies like Ultimaker to invest in education?
So I think, our mantra, again, is that the student is our future, right? That, 3D printing is still a fairly new technology. We really need to get kids excited about STEM careers early on in the process, and getting them to think about, careers in a different way than the traditional path that they may have taken. And when we look at schools now, like I'll go to schools and they'll be like, yeah, we have a special program. We have this room over here and it has a 3D printer. Or, yeah, you know what, we put this in the library, and kids on their free time can come and do this. That's great. But if we really want kids to be thinking this on a daily basis, when we work with schools that start in elementary school and that printer is right in their classroom, and kids are like, you know what, my desk is kind of wobbly today. What am I going to do to fix that problem? Yeah. Oh, you know what, let me design something that I can actually fix that problem with. We start to see kids understand that this is just a tool to solve problems. And again, that's why we've always advocated for that young experience, because then again, when we work with somebody like NASA or whoever else we might be working with, they then do the same thing, right? Like they go to those companies. That's what companies want. If you look at the World Jobs Report, right? The World Jobs Report says we need kids that can solve problems. 3D printing is one of the gateways to do that, but we have to get kids thinking that way early on.
It provides that aha moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of impact, I'm sure you see a lot of impact in the classrooms where you're placing your equipment, and in the districts and in the schools. Is there an example that sticks out where the impact was more significant than it was anywhere else?
I would say, there's so many examples, so I'm going to apologize to all the schools that are doing so many amazing things.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you in a bad place.
But I will say one district that I think has just done a phenomenal job, and they're a great partner for us, but Calcasieu Public Schools, they're down in Louisiana. Okay. They're actually a very large geographic district, but not tons of students. But they invested several years ago in over 450 machines. And they started putting them in all of their elementary school classrooms. Wow. And
every classroom, not every school.
No, every classroom. Every classroom. And I was very lucky. I've been there and I've visited with these kids. And when you watch these kids in kindergarten, I'm literally sitting down next to a first grader that's like, I could do better with my raft next time, and there are high schoolers that don't know what that means. And I'm like, oh goodness. And you walk into classrooms where they literally are, there was one classroom that we went into, and the problem they were solving is, pencils falling off the table, and what do we do? designing pencil holders. Well, that's, they're going through the design thinking process. They did a whole project where they went out into their community and went into elderly facilities that were like next to their schools. They interviewed them, understood the people that lived in these homes, like what their problems were. They went back and they designed items that could help them, tray holders for somebody that might have lost their grip, things that could open doors because they couldn't, grip maybe the door handle. So when I look at something like that, they get it, right? This isn't about, again, cookie cutters and all the things that you can make, which they're fun and they're great. But, when you really start to see kids take this on as I'm going to solve a world problem, that's pretty amazing. It's inspiring, right?
It is.
Like, hey, this is really cool. So and again, we could talk about so many examples like that. But to that point, we could also look at a lot of schools if somebody's watching and they're saying, well, gosh, I don't know that, like where are the 3D printers, Or what, we bought one 15 years ago and nobody used it. And it's not working now. Okay, well, if you bought it 15 years ago, maybe it's just not working because it's old technology, right? It's changed a lot. So I just get really excited about, seeing where we've come, because again, when 3D printing came out, I do think it was like, oh, well, what can we print with it? And now it's what problems can we solve with it, right? Those are two very different things.
And I love how the technology, specifically additive manufacturing, I love how that technology opens up Pandora's box in the minds of these students to think about the broader manufacturing industry and the opportunities for them in advanced manufacturing. Additive manufacturing for me is that gateway technology that plants that initial seed that manufacturing's pretty cool. There's a lot of technology going on here, and maybe I can be involved in some way.
Exactly. Well, and there's so many jobs that, students don't necessarily think about around around manufacturing in general, right?
Yeah.
But we right now have our printers, people think, oh, well, that's going to be the engineer that, is designing a product. That's who's going to use the 3D printer. Well, yeah, that's probably who is going to use that Stratasys printer that, we're working with for those high school kids. But what about, the person that's actually running the line that's building that car? People are like, well, how does 3D printing fit with that? Well, that's all part of manufacturing. But what if a pulley goes down? What if there's something on that line that goes down? That business could be losing millions of dollars every minute that's down. Well, if somebody knows 3D printing, you could actually create a part and put it right on that line right there.
Yeah.
So, but that means that everybody in that factory has to understand what the possibilities are.
Or call the local elementary school.
Or call they'll come over and fix it for you. Exactly.
So earlier in the year, we were very excited to announce the new Ultimaker Scholarship that has been established at the SME Education Foundation. Thank you very much for that donation and for your trust and enabling us to help you with your own philanthropic objectives. Can you talk a little bit about that scholarship, how it came to be, and what the inspiration was behind endowing that scholarship?
Absolutely. So, we've really been fortunate to have schools trust in us, and we wanted to pay back. We want to take part of what we get to also spread the word to other schools and to other areas of education. One of the ways that we did that was we are making a pledge to give over $500,000 this year to schools to get their program started, right? Because we know if we can get it started, it will start to spread. The second thing we did was we thought, you know what? Absolutely, I met with your team, and what is even better is, we put together a grant guide every year so schools can learn how to write grants. But we also thought, you know what? What if we could help them understand where to find scholarships? And, you guys have so many scholarships for students, and so we're only one of many. But we thought, you know what, we want to support this because if students see these scholarship opportunities, it gives them a chance to go in, and especially students, we really did want to focus on students from marginalized communities, students that maybe they don't have access to 3D printers or they don't have access to some of these advanced tools, but we want them to have the opportunity to go into one of these careers. And so, we could have done it on our own, but if we do it on our own, it's in a vacuum. If we do it in partnership with you and with other companies, I think it makes the word bigger. It makes the mission bigger, it makes the pool bigger. Let's get as many kids excited as possible so that hopefully next year we can do even more.
Let's do it.
I'm in.
Last question. You've been doing this a long time. You're in a lot of schools across the country.
Yes.
What advice would you give an educator who's maybe just getting started? What advice would you give an educator on how to best go about injecting new technology, specifically additive, into their classroom as they're building their career and technical education capabilities?
Absolutely. First thing is, don't just look at cost. Cost is one factor, but there are a lot of other things that you need to think about, because part of it is upkeep. Part of it is the materials and the maintenance. So you have to look at total cost. Training, exactly. Like, you've got to look at total cost of ownership, because what we did see in the early days, a lot of people got excited, they bought a 3D printer, but then they never trained anybody on how do you integrate this into your curriculum? How do you take ownership about it? It's not about me creating some lesson for this teacher that's in Chicago or Alaska. It's about understanding, well, you're in Alaska, what is it that you teach there, and how does this fit with what you do? So, number one, understand that you need to look at the total cost of ownership. You need to look at all of these different pieces and parts. You need to look at equity. You need to look at access. We need to start earlier. So it's not about putting these into just your CTE classrooms. Again, I love everything that SME does with setting up classrooms, especially at the high school level. But let's face it, if they get to your classroom and they've never seen 3D printing, they're going to be limited on what they can do with that equipment. But if they've started at kindergarten, man, they're going to be able to do some amazing things by the time they get to high school.
I use the sports analogy to that point. Kids don't decide to play baseball or football or basketball their freshman year of high school.
No.
They decide to make that choice, or their parents make that choice for them when they're 5 years old. And they come up through a system with coaches and training, and by the time they get to their freshman year, they're thinking about college, and maybe can I do this as a professional? Same type of experience, if you will, or exposure is needed in advanced manufacturing. The younger we can go, the more natural these kids will be when they're considering manufacturing as a career path.
Exactly, and I think, again, that's one of the things we try to do is, even at the younger grades, how are you going to move from whatever it is you start with up through? So again, that's where the partnership with Stratasys is so powerful, because truly, when we start a child with a basic printer in the elementary grades, they move up, you're going to move into an Ultimaker, you're going to start moving into dual extrusion, you're going to move from dual extrusion to maybe powder bed fusion, or you've got this way to kind of move through. But
it's a progression.
It's a progression. But from a district standpoint, you don't want to have 50 different kinds of brands and slicers, and there's so many things that schools need to understand. Like, you've got a slicer, and you've got CAD software, and you've got all of these different pieces. So I think what we see oftentimes is it's that teacher that gets super excited and they go out and they buy stuff and they put it in their classroom, and that's great. But how can we elevate this conversation to the superintendent level, to the curriculum level, where we're saying, hey, let's make a cohesive program that we can take students from these early years all the way through. Let's come up with, well, what is the CAD programs that we're going to use? What slicers are we going to use? And how is that going to take that child so that when they graduate from that high school, they're ready to walk into Ford, they're willing to GM, Petrobras Brazil, I don't know, wherever you want to go, and they're ready to walk in and actually use the software that they're going to see when they go in there. And that probably is going to be, there's a limited number of companies that are in these high-end, high-tech businesses that they will find. So
the Dottie Stewart Guide to Career and Technical Education is total cost of ownership.
Total cost of ownership.
The younger the better.
Yes.
And involve the entire district.
Yes.
Don't go it alone. Involve the principals, involve the superintendents, the more the better.
Yep, involve the IT. IT is really important in this.
Dottie, thanks for being here. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Appreciate your insights, and thanks again for the partnership with the SME Education Foundation. We're
Absolutely.
really excited to see this scholarship grow.
Can't get rid of me now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.